P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast starts now.
Welcome to another episode of the P.O.P podcast and our special series, Brace for Impact, where we dive deep into the stories of successful orthodontists. I'm your host, Jason Sirotin, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Scott Haley. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Jen Messenger, the founder and lead orthodontist at Messenger Orthodontics in Huntington Beach, California. We're excited to hear her story from building the practice from the ground up to the key lessons she's learned along the way. Welcome to the show, Dr. Messenger. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hey, good to see you. I'm excited to have Dr. Jen here. I've had the privilege and pleasure to spend some time with her over the years. I find her story to be very inspirational. And besides that, she's just a terrific person that can bring... I like to describe people into categories as positive life forces, and you're one of them, Dr. Jen. So we're excited to hear how you did this. My experiences tell me, Jason, that there's so many young doctors out there. When they tell me what their vision and their goals are, they usually are describing what Dr. Jen has done to some degree. So I thought that it'd be great to have her on. And then on top of it, she's done something extraordinary in probably one of the most competitive orthodontic markets in the country, if not maybe the world. So you've tackled many things to do what you've done, and we're excited to hear all about it.
Thanks.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. How did you get started? What drove you to dentistry?
Yes. So I was a patient myself. I had phase one. Back in the 80s, my orthodontist may have been one of the first ones to be doing phase one. So elementary school braces, high school braces, spent a lot of time with my orthodontist. My parents were in the medical field, pharmaceutical sales and medical sales. So they had a lot of friends that were doctors, and they all told me to go into dentistry. They were all medical doctors, and they all said, go into dentistry. You're helping people. You're not dealing with HMOs. At the time. They were, having to fight against what the HMOs were doing to their practice. And they felt that dentistry was a little different at that time.
So where did you go to school?
I grew up in Newport Beach, California, and stayed in California, went to UC Santa Barbara, got my bachelor's, then took a year off, studied for the DAT. I was a substitute teacher, so that was fun. Went back to my old high school and taught there, and then went to UCLA. Yeah, and my sisters were actually students at the time, so I was their substitute teacher.
Yeah.
And then went to UCLA dental school, wanting to be an orthodontist. That's what I said in my interview for dental school. I'm going to dental school to be an orthodontist.
So you're a senior, you're about to graduate from dental school or orthodontics. And what happens next? How do you decide what to do? Because I believe that's probably a critical, stressful time in a lot of young residents' lives.
Yeah, so I'm in dental school. I tell my husband, I got married at 24. So in dental school, we got married, and I told him I wanted to go to orthodontic school. And I told him we were going to have to move because it's really competitive. And UCLA, we had tons of smart people that were specializing, and I was up against some really great people. And I'm like, we're going to have to move wherever I get in. And at the time, he was trying to establish his career, and he's like, oh no, I don't want to move. How about you try being a dentist? If you really don't like it, then I'll give up my career for the time being and we'll move. So I went to USC actually for a residency. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a dentist now. So I wanted to do an extra year in general dentistry, an AEGD, and did that. And then we bought a house. We had the kids. About 3 years into being a dentist, I was wanting to be an orthodontist. So I brought it up to him again, and he's like, okay, let's do it. So we moved to Oregon with 2 kids, a 1 and a 3-year-old.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah.
How long was the program at Oregon? Was it 2 years?
2.5 years. Yeah, 2.5.
What was that journey like of going to school with 2 kids and a family? And how did you? Yeah, that sounds like a wild ride.
Very different than dental school, because dental school, it was just me and him. And then ortho, yeah, he became Mr. Dad. he started his own business that he worked from home and was able to take them to school in the park. And they have a really cool relationship with their dad now because of that. And I loved I loved my residency. I loved going to school every day and doing what I was doing. But it was a sacrifice as a mom, for sure.
When you were at school, did you ever have doubts, or was it all like, hey, I'm going forward? And did you have a plan? Was it always to own your own practice, or did that evolve?
That evolved because I was an associate. Yeah. And then I kind of wanted some things that you can't have as an associate.
So, hey, Jen, before we get to that, like, was it ever out of question that you weren't going to come back to Southern California? Or was that like, were you really specific on the geography where you wanted to end up practicing?
We actually thought about staying in Oregon. We liked it. But then by the end of 2.5 years of rain and gloomy weather, my husband's a surfer. We were like, okay, we got to get back home. And it was easy. We met in high school. We're high school sweethearts. So we knew where we were going. We're going back to our hometown where our families were. And our kids now are in high school at our rival high school in our hometown. So it was pretty clear where we were going.
Yeah. So out of school, you ended up as an associate for how many years?
From 2013 to 2018. So 5
Okay.
years.
Okay.
And that
All
kind of
right.
brings me to, like why and where. I'm a mom. I have roots. I'm established. My kids are in school. I didn't have options on where I could go in terms of setting up my practice. There were people that reached out to me that wanted to sell their practice, but it was an hour drive from my house. So for me, it was location. I need to be close to home. And so that's why I decided to do a startup.
Can you take us through the process of purchasing the practice and some of the highs and lows of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't have a consultant. I was like, where do I start? So for me, it was finding the spot. So I kind of looked at the Google map and I mapped out where are all the other orthodontists, which there's lots of orthodontists in Orange County. And I found a corner in Huntington Beach where the nearest orthodontist was a couple miles away. I'm like, maybe this would be a good spot. So researched different properties that were for lease, found a retail center. And at first in 2018, I didn't know a lot of practices in a retail center, but I'm so glad I did that because people see my sign, they stop in. We've gotten a lot of patients just by driving by and seeing me in the retail center.
So how did you go about fundraising, and did you have a business background? Did you bring in an expert? Because I'm sure there's so many women listening who are like, I wonder what she did.
Yes. So when we got a loan, because we couldn't do it any other way, I was still paying off my student loans, and we have 2 kids. They're expensive. So got a loan. Actually, I didn't get enough in my loan to cover the expenses. So then I was lucky to have some parents that gave me a loan. I'm like, Dad, I need some extra money. And then we paid them back. It wasn't just free money, but the bank wouldn't give me enough to cover everything, unfortunately.
Why
So,
give you enough to do what you need to make the money to pay them back?
yeah.
Makes too much sense.
So Jen, tell us a little bit about the office, though. I mean, how many chairs, how many square feet, all that type of stuff.
It's 2,000 square feet. I have 4 chairs in an open bay and then 1 semi-private room with a chair. I
Okay.
have a consult room, and that has just a barber chair, actually. I went with the barber
Okay.
chair in the consult room. And yeah, it's perfect size for me. I don't want to see 100 patients a day. I was an associate and saw 100 patients a day. I didn't want that. I want to see 40 to 60. Right now we're at 30 to 40. We have room to grow.
So Jason, it's funny, like, I'll be curious to get your take on it because I think you're kind of living it. So many orthodontists tell me that they would really like to have a boutique practice. And I was curious, like, is that a phrase that you agree to or you think you have? Or, I mean, what does that mean to you? I guess the definition of a boutique practice to me,
Yes.
it kind of just describing what you're describing.
Yes, we have a boutique practice. So more personalized. We have lots of little things we do for the patients that I don't think other practices do. And the patients only see me and they see me every time. And we have time to chat and talk and get to know each other. It's not 100 patients where you're bouncing chair to chair to chair. I can stay for a while, and I just really want them to have that experience.
Very good. So tell real quick, because I'm so excited about this. So you open up the practice, you start it, you open the doors. Is it just like, tell me about, I got to know what that felt like when that phone rang for the first time and that first patient walked in. It had to feel so good.
Yeah, so my kids were in elementary school at the time, and their elementary school is about a 15-minute drive to the office. And so I had a ton of their friends that supported me and came in. So right off the bat, we were busy because of that network that I have. And then a lot of people found me from my old associate job. And they lived in that area where even though the associate job was 5 miles away, they lived near my office. And so they found me for siblings. And so we were busy right off the bat, which was really nice.
Running a successful practice involves wearing a ton of hats. Many strategies you've implemented. Are there any that you've done that have been like kind of a game changer for you in like either organization or marketing?
Well, I wear a lot of hats. I do all the insurance. So I learned how to do that. I didn't know how to do anything when I came in, because as an associate, you're just doing dentistry or orthodontics. So I know how to submit claims. I know how to follow up on claims. I know how to order supplies and keep track of everything. I do a lot that the typical orthodontist doesn't do. And eventually I'll be giving those tasks to other people. But it was good to kind of know how to do everything so that when someone else takes over, I'll at least know what should be done and how it should be done.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you are facing today that you maybe didn't expect or that are surprising?
The staff shortages. It's really hard in California to find good staff. Right now I have an amazing team. I'm so lucky, but it took some time to get there. I don't know what it's like in other places, but California's been tough. And then the whole DSO, OSO things new, that kind of all started when I started my practice. It didn't really exist before that. So that's another thing that we are facing.
And what has that been like?
Well, just I'm finding that, people are selling to these OSOs, and what's going to happen when the owner doctor is done with their contract? What's going to happen with the quality of care? What's going to happen with prices? Are they going to lowball prices? And then I'm going to have to compete against that.
It creates a lot of uncertainty in the market for you as the private practice owner, I suspect, right?
We have a lot of clinics in California that we're going up against. And a lot of patients will get a consult with us and want us to price match. And I always say we don't price match because what we give you here is completely different than what you're getting somewhere else. And I hope you appreciate the difference.
Yeah, it's the difference between a Yugo and a new Mercedes.
Yeah.
You can't. It's like you don't want to go and mess with your mouth and your smile. I mean, look what's happened on the, direct to consumer side. It's messed up a lot of mouths. What are you seeing right now as towards the outlook of the orthodontic industry? The big changes, the opportunities that are ahead of us. What do you see?
Well, AI. So AI, we can do setups virtually now with the braces, do indirect bonding. Is that going to make it easier for a dentist to do braces and wires? That's kind of scary. I hope these companies only promote their products to orthodontists and don't go the dentistry route, because that could change things for us.
Yeah. Well, and you would know because you had experience as a general dentist too, right? So you understand the mindset.
I didn't know anything about
Yeah.
orthodontics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You understand what they don't know, and you understand that there's a pressure on them to be able to add revenue streams when things are going south for them. And sometimes they latch on to orthodontics for whatever reason. We need to tell them to focus more on endo or something like that. um, talk a little bit. Well, it's kind of interesting. So for those our listeners that are out there, I've been fortunate enough, and I'm from the Midwest. So, and I've been able to spend quite a bit of time in Southern California, but I think people would be shocked in other parts of the country, maybe not so much in the Northeast. Northeast is very similar to California, but I mean, the cost of you running a business is unbelievable, right? I mean, like I remember being at meetings and dinners and hearing like what you guys have to pay staff, and the cost of your buildings are, you might as well add 50% to whatever someone is paying in the middle of the country. So it really does take a strong amount of courage to go out on your own like you did. But I think one of the cool things that I think about you and your practices is like you said what you said about like quality of care, and you've been on the cutting edge of using the high-end techniques. You've always used quality products. I mean, has that been a struggle for you? I mean, or is that like the tug of war that you fight as an orthodontist, especially in a competitive market?
It's hard, but I just remember this one story when I had just graduated ortho school. I went around to orthodontists and kind of interviewed them and just got some insights. And one of them told me to move to the Midwest. He's like, you know what? You should move to the Midwest. They make way more money. Move there, raise your kids there, make a ton of money, and then retire in California. And my whole mentality was, I don't care if I make less money as long as I'm where I want to be. So for me, I know I make less money. I have more overhead. Doing a startup wasn't as, fruitful as buying an existing practice. But for me, it was all about lifestyle and just being able to have a balanced life with being a mom and being an orthodontist. And it's not all about making money.
Right. And providing great quality care in a great environment like you do.
And I'd rather do that. I'd rather buy the best bracket and do the best of everything and make less money and just know that I'm providing the best care I can.
Awesome.
You kind of touched on work-life balance, but when you're not in clinic, how are you spending your time?
I know. So I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, 2 girls. So PTA, tennis boosters, soccer, so just going to all their games and trying to be involved at school. And then I like yoga, Pilates, riding my bike to the beach. Yeah.
What's your approach to maintaining that healthy work-life balance? Like, I mean, is it the fact that, hey, I'm sticking to 40 to 60 patients a day? Is that like the cutoff? If I go over this, it's a different story for me?
Yeah. I mean, in California too, I don't know if I'll ever get to 100 patients a day. We'll see. But I see patients 3 days a week. And then I have my 2 non-doctor days. What's great about having a computer and your software on your computer, I can do a lot at home. So when the kids are at school, I'm doing treatment plans, letters to doctors, and then weekends are my family time.
Yeah. I get this question I feel like I have to ask every time. So it's, if you could go back to your younger self, maybe back to 2018, or maybe let's go back to the starting of the business. What advice would you give yourself now, or what watch outs would you give yourself, or what, if you could go in the time machine and hit the redo button, or, what would it be?
I know that's tough. I don't think I would change anything. I would just say like, hang in there. It's going to get stressful, but you're going to get through it. And you have a good support system and it's all going to work out.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Messenger, for sharing your journey and your valuable insights with us. I want to remind people that if they want to go to your website, it's very easy. You're just going to go to messenger-smiles.com and you can go check it out. There's lots of information. You can even book online, and she's right in Huntington Beach. And I really appreciate your time. What a great story. If people want to reach out to you, is there a direct email? There might be young residents who have questions. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Instagram, Messenger Smiles. They can DM me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's terrific. We appreciate your time today, and we want to thank you for being a member of P.O.P as well. So thank you for that, and thanks so much for, like I said, being a positive life force and an inspiration to a lot of orthodontists that are out there. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And Scott, what do you want to say about the advantages of P.O.P before we take off? And if somebody wants to get in touch with you?
I think, real quick, I mean, not to do the shameless plug here, but Dr. Messenger pretty much summed it up. I mean, we're a network of private practice orthodontists that try to come together to share best business practices and also come together to be able to have some of the benefits that you can get if you're a part of a DSO or an OSO. That might be, buying power, but also what I always say is, everyone comes in worried about saving money, but I really think the power of the group is being able to share best practices and ideas and ways to grow our top line and drive down our costs and expenses as well. So, yep.
That's for sure.
All right. Thank
Make
you.
sure you go to pop-ortho.com. And remember, if you need digital marketing, make sure you go to brainbitescreative.com. We're here to help you on your journey. On behalf of the P.O.P podcast, I'm Jason Sirotin. We'll see you next time.
P.O.P. Podcast.